Hey, if you're an actor at the start of your career, or if you're an actor who hasn't started at all, no judgment. But I do want you to know that it has never been a better time to get started with Backstage. Just go to backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code word envelope at checkout for a 30-day free trial. That's 30 whole days. You can browse through thousands of casting notices from thousands of filmmakers, producers, casting directors, all looking for talent just like you. Make a profile, upload a headshot, find out what kind of projects you want to be a part of. Backstage is where you book that very first role. It's also where you book that second role, and then that third role, and then you keep booking roles all the way up until you win that Oscar. And then you can come join me here on In the Envelope. We love a full circle moment here at Backstage. But first, you gotta subscribe, and again, that's 30 days free if you use the code word envelope at checkout. ENVELOPE, envelope, 30 days free. Get those roles. And I'll see you back here when I interview you when you win an Oscar. Cannot wait. Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the one-stop shop for actors and creators both above and below the line. I am your host, Vinny Mancuso, Backstage senior editor and professional entertainment obsessive. I'll be your guide through every corner of the creative industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. Here you'll find intimate, in-depth talks with today's most award-worthy names in film, television, and theater. Along the way, we'll get advice on living your best creative life, relatable stories of the highest highs and lowest lows, and maybe, just maybe, a rare peek in the envelope.
That's the thing with auditions. It's not necessarily like, oh, am I good enough to be in your thing? Do you really think I've got the chops? You know, it's not that. It's actually sometimes like your idea is just what they're looking for. Sometimes they've just got a different idea of it. And I think getting rid of that, like, you know, these people have so much power to give me what I want idea. Like, no, I've got power to give you what you want as well.
Welcome to In the Envelope, the Actors Podcast. I am your host, Backstage senior editor Vinny Mancuso. And joining us today is a young actor who, if you don't know their name yet, trust me, you will soon. That is, of course, the great Jessie Mei Li. Now, in 2018, not too long ago, give or take a lockdown or two, Jessie was still auditioning. They had just gotten an agent, not that far removed from a job as a teacher's assistant. And then in the time since, they have made some significant leaps in their career. First to the West End to play Claudia Caswell in All About Eve alongside Gillian Anderson and Lily James. And then soon after that to Netflix's Shadow and Bone, the sprawling fantasy series based on the books by Leigh Bardugo. After a 2-year hiatus, the show is returning this week for its second season. And Jessie is firmly at the center of this massive, moving fantasy series. They are right at the top of the call sheet. And this episode is, among many other things, just a great inside look at what that responsibility means to a young actor. Jessie is incredibly insightful, and this is a wonderful conversation no matter where you happen to be in your career. It's also a conversation, by the way, that starts right in the middle of some technical difficulties, which is just simply the charming nature of recording a podcast. Let's get right into it anyway. Here is Jessie Mei Li. Yeah, let's just start over. Hi, how's it going? How's it going?
Hi, it's going well, thank you.
We're just talking about, that sort of strange limbo period between, the sort of flashbulbs of the premiere and press days and all that stuff. And then, the show, people still haven't seen it, it's still coming out in 2 days. How you navigate the sort of in between of like waiting for people to see this thing after, the week you had.
Yeah, well, the premiere was a lot for me. I'm like, it's funny, I was describing it to friends when I got back and I was like, imagine like we're in a movie, like a steady cam and I'm flailing through the through the crowd and there's flashing lights and I get very like overwhelmed, like in a sensory way quite easily. So I got back from LA and I've just been taking it very easy. I don't know how people, honestly, I don't know how people do it. You know, it's awards season at the moment, and you're seeing all these people going to all these events and parties and stuff. I mean, I think I'd drop dead, to be honest. And yeah, there's a lot of, I think I'm sort of in a way waiting for the show to come out, just because, you know, I think subconsciously I just, you know, it's been, the lead up's been such a long time that I'm not nervous. I'm just excited for it to come out. But at the same time, I've already watched it. We've had the premiere, and in my mind, it's sort of like it's gone. Also, so it's a really strange time for me at the moment.
I can imagine. I've seen you. You know, I've seen you even say, you know, I think either in interviews or it was either on your Instagram or something like that, where you noted that you don't like being recognized. It's a very sort of overwhelming process for you. So I always find that interesting when I talk to actors, because I hear that a lot. You know, how overwhelmed. But your job is to be perceived. Your job is to be seen.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you see the overlap there. You know, where this is your profession, it's what you love to do, but it's also something that causes you to be seen, and how you see that overlap, and how you've sort of thought about that over the years.
Yeah, God, it makes me feel so cringe hearing that back. Like, oh, I don't love you. Oh, I don't want to be famous. It's just such a cringe thing to be saying. But it's true. I think the thing is, and I feel like I can honestly speak for like many actors, because I actually don't know many people who, you know, would say that they honestly enjoy that outside of it. You know, some people are better at dealing with it than others, for sure. But I think it is one of those strange things where, you know, before getting into this job, you don't really think about it. I know it seems ridiculous, but I mean, certainly not for me. I just wanted to be an actor and be in films and things. That was exciting. But the other side of it, I just thought, well, that's, you opt in for that, surely. You know, you don't have to do any of it. But then, you know, when you do get to this point, well, you do have to do it. And it's strange, I think, because I do very much have like my life, you know, me as, you know, there's that Jessie Mei Li, who goes to the premiere of Shadow and Bone, but then there's just like a little old Jess Lee who, you know, like living in Bristol, hanging out with my mates that I grew up with. You know, it is strange, I think, because those two people are very different, I think. And yeah, I think the issue that I have with it is that even in my mind, like, yeah, before doing this, you think, okay, well, you go to an event or you go to a premiere for your show or whatever, you've got to turn up, you've got to do press. You can't really like switch it off as and when, you know, you can't just go, well, I mean, you can in some ways, like, you know, I shaved all my hair off, which was quite a good little disguise. And you know, but still, you know, sometimes you just want to, and I'm not like famous. I mean, people recognize me from season 1 of Shadow and Bone more than I would have expected, truly. Like, I thought maybe I'd get recognized by the odd sort of 15-year-old girl, but no, they were like, I'll be walking to the shop in my pajamas thinking no one's going to speak to me. Or if they are going to speak to me, it's just some like local, chatty, friendly person who has no idea who I am. And yeah, it's happened a few times where I've just been like blindsided by like just doing my thing, and there'll be people want to take pictures. And I'm like, bro, do I look like I want my picture taken right now? You know? So it's strange. I'm sort of taking some getting used to in a way. But at the same time, it's all got to look at the bright side of things and enjoy the bits that are enjoyable, for sure.
Absolutely. I do want to, you know, I absolutely want to talk about, you know, Shadow and Bone season 2 and where you are right now. But of course, I also want to talk about how you got here, the entire journey. So I do want to go back to the beginning and ask if you have any sort of, you know, memory and a sort of acting origin story, something you saw, a performance, a film, anything that where you're like, wow, that's, you know, that's what acting is, and I would like to do that.
I guess it's never that deep, like in a sense that I just always loved movies. I love watching films, both with like my dad and my stepdad and my family generally. You know, films are like a big part. And my brother, even at my brother's now, he's a doctor, he's a GP, but he's hilarious and such a good character actor. Like we grew up it was such a part of my life. It never really felt like, oh, I want to be an actor. It was just my brother and I and my friends. We'd always be putting on stupid little shows. And, then as I got older, it would just be, I loved telling stories and doing impressions and taking the piss out of people. All of that stuff was exciting for me. And yeah, I guess maybe I remember as a young child really I was obsessed with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It was my favorite film. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. It's amazing. And all of the wire fu. And I remember thinking, me and my brother used to act it out. We used to have, we used to call them Jade Fox battles. We used to do that. And imagine we were flying through the air and I think that was very much, little Jess wanting, would love to have done some wire fu.
There's still time.
But yeah, there's still time, exactly. And actually, when Shadow and Bone season 2 does come out, there's actually a nod to some of these wire fu moments in Hong Kong films and stuff, which is really cool. So yeah, I guess I didn't necessarily have wow, that's inspired me, I want to be an actor, because that actually came much later in life for me, the actual wanting to go down that career path.
Amazing. Well, great weekend for Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Love to
so
see
emotional.
It.
Yeah.
And I love that you left. You were traveling out of LA the night of the Oscars. That could not have been fun.
I know. Oh God. I know. It was funny. I was at the airport, and I think the guy who dropped me off was just like, "You're not going to hang around for the Oscars." I was like, literally, look at my face. I think one of my eyes was closing. I was so.
No, thank you.
I do not do sleep very well, so I was like, I'm going to sit this one out, guys.
But I have heard you say that when you got into acting, it was sort of you did it sort of as a lark. You took an acting class, and it just became, you're like, oh, I think I could do that, and then you sort of started auditioning. Or how was the transition into oh, this is fun, to oh, I'm gonna try and do it, get paid money for it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because I dropped out of uni and I was working several jobs. I worked as a TA, like a teaching assistant at a secondary school, and that was wonderful. I loved that job. And yeah, I think I was so much just wanting to have fun and do things that sort of fed my soul, because I'd had a bit of a hard time those years leading up to it. And then yeah, I think it was, you start to, throughout these acting classes, start to make friends who lots of them I'm still friends with now, who were on that, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to do this is going to be my career. And that feeling and that excitement was so, what's the word? It's infectious. It was infectious. I was then like, oh, that's cool. And you hear about someone telling you, oh, there's an audition, an open call for something. And, I just thought, I don't really think about things. But I just go, oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, go on. Let's do it. Why not? Bit of adrenaline, something different, whatever. And then, yeah, I think it was when I started to get in rooms, so they say, that I would normally have got into, it was often because they were looking for an open casting for someone who looked like me, for example, someone mixed race. And I would end up getting quite far into it and thinking, oh my God, I was doing this semi-seriously. And you're telling me you actually think I could do this? Oh, okay, cool. That's good. Because, I'd always enjoyed acting. I didn't think I was any good at it. And then, yeah, it wasn't until I met this director who ended up, seriously, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I met him at one of these auditions that I'd just gone along to on a whim, in a way. And yeah, he was so supportive. He could see that I didn't have any credits and was very green. And the other actor that I was auditioning against, I guess, was very famous. And so then this director ended up helping me out and getting me in touch with with some friends of his who were agents. And I owe everything to him, because I turned up to meet these agents like, these guys are just going to give me some advice on headshots. Like, it's just exciting to meet people. I'm a chatty patty. I just want to talk away to anyone. And then they signed me because of his recommendation. And so that was around the time, I think I was working. I was a tutor and I was a waiter and I was doing all kinds of things. And I was just, those jobs were so mind-numbing and not for me. And I remember just thinking, right, guys, I'm going to quit. Bye. It's been great, but I'm going now. And, you know, it was quite a scary time in a way because I had no money and, you know, not so much like support necessarily. So, yeah, I was just kind of like, just had to sort of jump into it. And luckily for me, I ended up getting work quite quickly because my agents are so brilliant. So yeah, it was a really strange time, but it all kind of felt right. You know, sometimes when things just feel like they fall into place, and I was like, oh, this is what I should be. You know, I've been trying so hard to kind of find my place and what I should be doing, and it's been so grueling. and yes, it was really just such an exciting time. You know, this was only 2018, I think. So actually not that long ago in the grand scheme of things, because obviously we don't count COVID.
So it was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
I do want to ask, because, you know, that is a moment where you then took a few big jumps one after the other. So I do want to sort of walk through those jumps and you know, sort of look at who you were as a person, as a performer during those times. And that first jump was to the West End, to All About Eve. So I'm curious, you know, you are auditioning, you have your agents, and then suddenly you're on the West End. What do you remember specifically, any moment that is sort of emblematic of that time, this first big leap for you?
Yeah, that was a strange one because I really didn't think I was going to get that part. You know, I'd done like a course with the National Youth Theatre, but outside of that, I hadn't really done anything on stage apart from like when I was a kid, you know, at school. So, I mean, when I say I wasn't taking the audition seriously, I don't mean in like a petulant way. I mean that I just thought, I might as well. My general kind of way, I guess, in life is to just have fun, because
it's worked out.
It has worked out. And, you know, and to try, even if like, you know, maybe I'm nervous or the people in the audition are a little scary or something. I don't know. I feel like that part of it, that challenge of just trying to enjoy myself in the situation, has been really helpful, because I think it takes you out of that, you know, silly, oh no, everyone thinks I'm rubbish kind of mindset that I think is quite easy to fall into. Yeah, so I remember getting the part in All About Eve. I mean, it also, again, sounds ridiculous, but it kind of just like felt right when I, you know, turned up there. I met the other actors, you know, the girl sharing a dressing room with is one of my, you know, we became like sisters, you know, and we were a similar place in our career, and we love her so much. And it was just like such an exciting and slightly surreal time, I guess, because I had literally just been working in like a shitty tutoring center in like the town I grew up in, you know, with like some of my co-workers were like 16-year-olds who were siblings of people I went to school with. It's just like, what is my life? It was such a weird leap. You know, I'm just Jess Lee from Red Hill, and suddenly it was, you know, I'm there in a room with all these actors who I'd seen on TV, and that was my first kind of, because lots of people obviously in my life were, oh my god, what's Gillian Anderson like? Oh, what's Lily James like? And I've never been one to be sort of get all spoony over famous people, because I'm aware that like there's people, and I'm aware of the fame machine and business, and
their job.
You know, like we're sold a certain perception of these people, and I know that I've always known that wouldn't be the case, but that was my first kind of step into this like, you know, mysterious hidden world of actors and famous actors and all of that, and it was quite good, because the people who were there, like for example like Gillian Anderson, who's just so down to earth and you know, just super cool, talented, and you know, the kind of person that walks into a room and you know where she is, even if your back's to her, you know. But at the same time, it was just like, oh, this is a woman who's a woman, she's a mum, you know, she's a hard worker, like no different from like people in my own life. And I think that was really nice, because I have, you know, since gone forward since that job, I've never felt, because I think it could, you know, I've met other actors who will say, oh, I'm doing a job with X person, or I'm really nervous to meet them, and I don't necessarily feel like I suffer from that at all, because I'm just like, hey, look, you know, they're just a person, I'm just a person. Exactly. We might get on really well, we might not, but yeah, it was really it was amazing. And to be on stage every night, you know, it's sort of, it just makes me laugh thinking about it. 'Cause, like, it was some of it was so chaotic and it was so much fun. We'd be playing games like on stage, like Wink Murder, and it was a really great group and just such a lovely like initiation, I guess, into this life and this world, and definitely made me want to go back on stage at some point, because it's like you don't get that same sort of like adrenaline that you do on stage anywhere else.
I was going to ask if there's anything sort of technical or craft wise that you either learned or honed on the stage that you know has stuck with you, and maybe translates to television a bit.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest downfalls as an actor is that you may be able to tell, I'm a bit of a mumbler. I always have been. Like enunciation and like, and throwing my voice and all of that stuff does not come naturally. It does when I'm dicking about and like doing impressions of people. I'm quite loud when I want to be, but I think, it was very much like the things to do with the voice. I really took away from doing All About Eve. And I remember it was one of our tech rehearsals, and we did a rehearsal without mics. And I remember the vocal coach came up to me afterwards and said, "Darling, I can't hear a word you're saying." And I was like, "Oh, great, nice." That was me thinking, I was like yelling.
Is that going to be a problem for this? Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Oh God. And it's still taken me, until it's still something I'm very much like working on. I grew up having a little bit of a little minor speech impediment as well. So it's interesting then having to like be on stage and be heard and everything. So yeah, it was definitely, I took a lot away from it. I think, to be honest, rather than the technical side of things, it was more how to conduct yourself in a place of work. I learned that a lot from the other actors who were there, because we've worked with people who've been in the business a long time, and to see that level of like professionalism, but also while being lovely like family setting, and everyone was kind and warm and supportive, but also like, okay, I'm gonna be professional and I expect that from the rest of you as well. That I thought was really important. It was actually something that I felt I very much took from that experience into, because I was auditioning for Shadow and Bone at the time, and I came onto Shadow and Bone and really wanted a similar atmosphere on set.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to ask, that is the next big leap of your life was to Shadow and Bone. It was less a leap than it was just happening simultaneously. What was that sort of, you already had this big transition to the West End, and then very soon afterward you have another transition. Was that something that you could even think about at the time that it was happening, or is it just, well, here I am, now I'm doing a TV show?
Yeah, it was a bit like, here I am, now I'm doing a TV show. Because while doing All About Eve, I got a small part in Edgar Wright's film Last Night in Soho, which was amazing because I'm such a huge fan of his work. I grew up watching Hot Fuzz and Shaun the Dead, and so that was again like a really good little step into. I'd never been on a big film set before. I'd been on a short film set and smaller things. So that was another, All About Eve and then Last Night in Soho were like really good moments for me to observe. Because I wasn't huge parts in either of those, I could look around and observe the others and see what was going on and understand how like the film set worked. And so then I got the part for Shadow and Bone while we were doing Last Night in Soho. And I guess it's strange, Vinny. I don't really know how to describe it, but like I guess in my mind, like I feel like sometimes when I feel like I'm on the right path, it's almost like you're not going to sort of stop me from doing it. Do you know what I mean? I can't quite explain it, but it just, when I got the part in Shadow and Bone, I was like, well, yeah, like that feels right to me.
that was going to happen, of course.
And I don't think it comes out of arrogance. It's just, I think I'm very good. I can feel when something feels right, and I'm not afraid in that moment to sort of go for it. And so getting the part of Alina, like I remember just doing the first audition and thinking, this, I feel like I get this, and I know how I would want, I know how I want this character to be. I had such a clear idea in my mind of how she should carry herself and sound and feel inside, and obviously it matched up with what they were looking for, because that's the thing with auditions. It's not necessarily like, oh, am I good enough to be in your thing? And do you really think I've got the chops, what it takes? It's not that. It's actually sometimes like your idea is just what they're looking for. And sometimes they've just got a different idea of it. And I think getting rid of that, like, these people have so much power to give me what I want idea. Like, no, I've got power to give you what you want as well. And I think that's a nice, way to think about these things. So yeah, going into Shadow and Bone, I just felt like, no, do you know what? I feel like everything in my life so far, trials and tribulations and whatever, I was like, I feel like I'm in the right spot and the right place in my mind to do this. And yeah, then we just got started, and it did just feel like, oh, yeah, cool. This makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you found that the sort of the opposite is true as well, where if you something feels right, you're going to it just sort of, you're going to make it fall into place. Do you also know when something you're like, oh, that's not for me? Has it helped for you to know that a choice or a role or an audition, you're just like, this isn't for me. This is
not for me.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, not everything's for you, and that's okay. Like, yeah, I think I've become pretty discerning actually with what I want to spend my time doing. I think because I'm such a sensitive soul, that doing a big job or something, it just take it out of me. And I think because of that, I read a script, and if I don't feel like I get it, or it would get me, or I would be right for the role, I wouldn't necessarily push to do it. Because I think, while I do think I'm versatile, there are certain things that I just think, well, you're not going to get me to do that. I think that's there's someone else out there who would look better, sound better, whatever. So yeah, I'm definitely quite good at knowing what's for me and what isn't. Obviously then when you do have like, oh, that's definitely for me, and you don't get the job, of course it is, I still do, not to say I don't get like disappointed, but it just means then I'm like, okay, but that's all right, because there will be something else. And I want to be in something where the casting team or the director, they're like, no, we want you, we like what you're bringing. That's what I find exciting, to be able to collaborate and like work with people who've got these strong ideas. That's wicked. And so yeah, I've definitely been getting better at sort of going, no, that's not for me, this is what I want to do.
Actors can say no as well. It's not just getting no. It's not just getting rejection.
Yeah, exactly.
You can also turn things down as well. So I would say that this third leap in your career was a bit more gradual. Now you're heading into season 2 of Shadow and Bone, which is, I have to imagine, feels a bit different, because there's one thing to debut a TV show. There's one thing to say, oh, this is who's playing this role. Now it's sort of taking ownership. You're coming back, and you are the center of the show. You are leading the show. So I'm curious how your relationship to the show overall feels different heading into season 2.
How does it feel different? Well, I guess in season 1, I didn't necessarily know what we were making, in a way, fair. Because, you turn up and you talk to all the creative team and the directors, and, you'll see little snippets, I guess, but I didn't know what Shadow and Bone was going to be, if that makes sense, in terms of its tone and its themes and who it was going to appeal to and all of those things. So yeah, coming back, I think with the knowledge of like, okay, this is the show that we're making. These are the people that love this show. These are the things that the network want, to be highlighted or whatever. And so I think there's less sort of like, because there's less mystery around the whole thing. I guess it was less exciting in one sense, and just more lovely, familiar, coming back to, this cast as well. Like the cast of Shadow and Bone are just my favorite people on this planet. So all of that, it was strange. And I think a lot of us, well, maybe I shouldn't speak for everyone else. I certainly was different, coming off the back of season 1, going through lockdown. And, I'd gone through some things in my personal life, which meant that I was different, by the time we got back. And it's quite a long time between, it was like 2 years almost. And so, yeah, it was exciting. And also, like with Netflix, for example, we never know if we're going to get another season. We don't know what's going to happen, what they want to see, blah, blah, blah. So in a sense, you kind of just have to roll with it and make the most of of, what could possibly be our last season. So it was strange. It was almost like, it felt like the beginning, but also could almost be the end. So let's just like, have fun, let our hair down, party, have fun, but also work really hard. And it was an incredibly intense 5 months, was filming Shadow and Bone season 2. It was amazing in so many ways, but also kind of like terrible in loads of ways at the same time. It was a lot. Season 2, definitely.
I feel like when productions started back up and they were interrupted and they were sort of, I'm curious. It felt like these productions that happened after lockdown, there was a renewed sense of like taking care of each other and community, and it almost felt like that's bled into the project. So I'm curious what that feeling was like on set, where it kind of felt like you guys were coming together again, and it was getting to see people again, but also like, oh, we're back on a set. What was the difference there between before and after? Because we were all different people after lockdown, basically.
Yeah, it was really strange. And, myself and lots of the cast had all gone through different like life changes and steps. And so lots of us turned up as different people, but you almost like regress in a way. It's like when you're with your oldest friends from school or college or whatever, and as soon as you're together, you're just back to how you were, like just being silly. And it was very much like that, like despite everything that, various people have gone through, and we kind of just all come together and everyone just has such a good time. Like everyone just has so much fun, and there is so much, with or without COVID, like it's a group, an atmosphere, like there's so much love. And like that was super important to me in season 1. I think season 1, I felt a little bit more. I remember one of my colleagues, Ben, who was a lot more, he'd been in the industry like 15 years. And I remember like the first or second times we ever met, he said to me, he's like, you're number 1 on the call sheet. And I was a bit like, I don't really know what that means. Sure. And he's like, people are going to look to you to set an example and look to you to set the tone. And it's a big responsibility. And I remember him saying that, and I was thinking, that's where, all of those things I learned on those previous jobs. I was thinking, oh, okay, cool. Like that is important. It is important to have the right atmosphere. So I think season 1, I was very much feeling like, I guess in the sense, like I was leading the cast, and that I did have to bring people together. And, I really, really wanted it. I didn't want there to be any clicky, diva-y behavior, or, people not speaking well, people, I wanted everyone to be polite and respectful to everyone on set, because it's a clock, it's a machine that everyone needs to get on, everyone needs to be respectful. Otherwise, that's where things get sloppy, things get messy. And so that was season 1, was very like wanting to take control in that sense. But season 2, I felt like the foundations have been laid, and everyone is so kind and wonderful and respectful that I felt like I could almost take a step back, sort of enjoy the atmosphere. But also, we had new people coming in. And then I think rather than me being sort of like the mother hen in season 2, because everyone was the mother hen, I think by this point I became more of like, come to my flat, we'll have a party. Do you know what I mean? It was more that kind
Absolutely.
of thing, and or come over and have dinner. And
equally helpful.
Exactly,
like,
need
valuable.
to let off some steam, come and do it at my house. So it was definitely different. I played a different role in season 2, definitely.
Absolutely. I've gotten a lot of interesting answers as I do this podcast about chemistry. Whether it's a real thing, whether it's just acting. I can tell, just from the interviews and stuff like that, and from what you just said, this is a huge cast that really, from the outside looking in, really got along.
Yeah.
I'm curious from a performance standpoint, what's the difference between acting with someone when there is no interpersonal tension or anything like that versus, is it just easier? Does it matter? Or is it just part of the job?
Yeah, I don't really know, because, well, I mean, my experience of Shadow and Bone is, pretty much everyone that Alina has in these intense scenes with are people I'm just very, very good friends with. I think that friendship is really, in real life friendship is really important, because for myself and like lots of the actors that I work with, it's almost like when they say action, like, for example, working with Archie, who plays Mal and Archie are so different as, you know, it's funny because I think sometimes there are some performances in, you know, in lots of things where it's almost like the actor is doing such a subtle performance, but it's so incredibly different from what they're like in real life. And if you don't know them, it's almost like you don't see how incredible it is. And I think I'm very good at just switching, just losing Jessie, like losing myself and being in the scene. So it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it would necessarily matter to me if I didn't know the person very well, because it's about our characters. But there is a level, like, for example, with Ben, who's a very good friend of mine, you know, he's sort of took me under his wing, I guess, in season 1. And we have a very silly relationship, which is nice because our characters don't at all. And so much of what we're being asked to do is intense. And for someone like me, who I think, you know, it's so serious, some of those scenes that I would almost want to laugh, you know, get the giggles, whatever, but you don't, because you get the silly out before, you know, when you're having a coffee or whatever it may be. And, you know, so for example, like working with Ben as Kieran, who they obviously want there to be so much tension between these two characters, and it made it so much easier because, you know, Ben, again, being nothing like his character, we can just be silly, just, you know, have a giggle and have a cup of tea and then like talk about the scenes and be really frank with each other about what we're comfortable with. And that definitely makes it, on the day, it makes it much more of an enjoyable experience. I think if I didn't know Ben, or we didn't get on at all, or there was some weird stuff going on, and then we had to do all that, that would probably make the experience, the acting would probably be the same, but the experience inwardly for me in between takes would be like probably more exhausting. So I guess it's different in that sense. Yeah.
I am curious about something you just said, which was the sort of the losing Jessie, you know, the sort of playing the reality of the character in the scene. I've seen Shadow and Bone. I've seen a bunch of season 2 as well, and it's you know, there's a lot of you know, physicality to the role. There's a lot of the sort of, you know, movement with the character. There's a lot of the lingo that comes fast from the books.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you navigate all that, and getting to a place where it feels real enough to play the scene. You know, it's sort of navigating the CGI, the dialogue, the lingo, the lore, stuff like that. How you navigate that while also sort of, you know, playing the reality for you.
It feels like such a sort of rubbish answer to a question, but it's quite difficult for me to articulate what I'm trying to say, but I just get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're asking me, okay, there's a monster over there.
Yeah.
I can just quite easily imagine that. I think I've got like a very strong imagination. And I think also I think I've got that little ADHD superpower of living so much in the moment. Like, I'm very good in my day-to-day life of just completely forgetting what's going on, where I am. And, you know, I think that really does help, actually, being able to just, I can't quite explain it to you. Like, it's quite funny watching the show back sometimes, because it's almost like I have no memory of what we were doing, because even though I remember the lines. If you ask me to just say the lines in this scene as I'm watching it, I will just be able to do it. It will come naturally. But like, it's so bizarre, and thinking, oh, I didn't know that my face does that, or whatever, you know, watching it back. But I think you just have to believe. I don't know how to explain it. You just have to, you know, there's a man running around in a green morph suit and there's all kinds of nonsense happening. But I think when you're so invested in your character, and like, I really, like, Alina, in some ways, it's quite a difficult part to play. It's quite challenging because, you know, she's from lots of the stuff from Shadow and Bone. The challenges I find from Shadow and Bone, the fact that they come from these books that are first-person perspective narratives that also are really quite dense. A lot happens in them, but because of the nature of this show and the fact that they, you know, the Six of Crows storyline is so important, and obviously that's the pinnacle that we're going to get to at some point. That's a really amazing story. But yeah, it's like trying to fit in Alina's arc and her story and her characterization in actually what essentially are like quite short, even though I would say I probably got the most screen time. It's actually not a lot of time we actually get to spend with Alina in the grand scheme of things. You know, if it was just Shadow and Bone and we had an hour each episode to follow her. So I guess it's like having to just be so invested and know the character so well, so that in, you know, if it is a short 3-minute scene, you know, you do really feel that, you know, that person coming through. And I mean, it's bloody exhausting, like doing all the magic and things. Because I mean, it bothers me sometimes if I watch something and I don't feel like the movement and the CGI and everything, like if that doesn't all come together, it feels like a shame. So that's why I really did myself a mischief. Like even though it might not look it when when you're watching it back, a lot of like Alina's movements and even just holding a static position, but while doing the powers, I'm not just standing there. Like I'm doing so much inside my body that I would get back from work and just be like, you know, my abs would be hurting, my back, my neck, like everything was just, it would be exhausting. But I feel like it's worth it because then when I watch it back, even though lots of people might not even notice or care, I notice that I feel like it looks legit, and then I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that work, even though it probably goes over everyone else's heads when they're watching it. It's like, oh yeah, she's just doing their magic. But then I'm like, but if it looks legit enough that you're just going to not even think about the performance, then I've done my job properly. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think that's deeply important. I think that if you didn't do that, people would notice. But it almost feels like you don't notice it because you're doing it. It's very hard to articulate.
That's what Alina feels like to me, I think, as a character. I think it's almost like the less we kind of like notice things about her, the better, the more we're getting to the core of this character, because she is like, it's strange. She is someone who we see her in season 1 saying, you know, never cry in public, blah, blah, blah. That, you know, she's so held inside that actually there's quite a lot of stuff that I know is going on, you know, behind the scenes that probably, again, it's going over people's heads. But that's the thing with Alina. So I think it's why it's a challenge, is to have this inner life and this inner power and all of that, but not have it be noticeable. And as an actor, obviously I've got an ego as well. Like I'm like, I want someone to say, well done, you did a sick job. But also I don't, because I'm glad that, you know, it just feels natural. It feels seamless. And that was my goal. So if that's the case and we go through season 2 with Alina being, you know, her scenes being enjoyable and exciting, that's that, then I've done my job, you know?
So as we sort of, you know, as we wrap up here, I see that we're kind of coming up to our time. We did talk about, you know, these leaps you've made so far in your career, but you're still early in your career. There will be more leaps to be made. Your big breakout role was Shadow and Bone, so that is sort of, you know, what you're focused on now. But you do have, you know, stuff coming up. You have Havoc, the Gareth Evans movie. I'm curious, as you look towards these future leaps, are there any parts of your artistic persona or who you are as an actor that you are especially eager to share, eager to show off as you look towards the future, that maybe audience have not seen yet?
I would really like, I mean, it's funny because for some reason, I guess maybe something happened to me when I was a teenager or whatever, because this is probably the reason why I've shied away from it a little bit. But, you know, friends and family always say to me, like, when are you going to do some comedy stuff or like something wacky? Like, when are you going to do that? And I was like, guys, like, I really want to. But I think obviously portraying Alina, you know, that's my main thing that people know me for. So obviously that's the kind of thing that comes through to me now, is like similar kinds of characters, which is cool. You know, I'm not going to turn my nose up at the right project, but yeah, I just think it's funny because in my real life, you know, everyone says I'm such a goblin. I'm such like a, you know, I'm such a creature. Like, and I do think this is what I mean. Probably when I was a teenager, I probably was trying to be funny sometime, like one time, and someone didn't laugh, and then I just completely just never being funny in public ever again. But obviously amongst friends and family, that's my main thing, you know, and it would be fun to be able to like also just play a character that's having a good time. Like Alina is not having a good time either season of Shadow and Bone. And like, but for me, I get so in that character's body. Like I hold my own tension in certain places, but Alina holds her tension in different places. And to be in that body all day, you know, like is absolutely exhausting. I would get like Alina headaches from just like the facial posture and like, so it'd be really fun to play someone, probably in something maybe a bit wacky and funny, but who's having a good time. I think I'd really like that. Someone who's a bit more carefree and taking it easy. That would be my ideal right now.
I love that. Well, spoken into the universe. Hopefully
Yes.
we can make that happen.
Thank you.
Amazing. Jessie, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you literally just landed not that long ago, so I really appreciate you taking this time. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, not at all. It's been lovely. It's been really nice to chat to you, Vinny.
Thanks, as always, to our brilliant producer, Jamie Muffett, and to the whole team at Backstage, Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Casey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. 100% free, you simply cannot beat that. For more exclusive content, find us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who should we interview next? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another peek in the envelope.